Welcome back to Mini Movies. Today I will explain a fantasy romance film from 2006 titled Penelope. Jessica and Franklin Wilhern didn't expect to find out that the Wilhern family curse is real when they had their first child. A long time ago, one of the Wilherns got a servant girl pregnant, but he didn't marry her because he was afraid his family would be embarrassed. The servant girl fell off a cliff because she was sad. This made her mother, the town witch, very angry. She put a curse on the Wilhern family so that the next daughter would be born with a pig's face. The curse won't be broken until one of her own kind claims this daughter as her own. All of the Wilhern wives had sons for a long time. After a century, Wilhern finally had a daughter, but she wasn't really a Wilhern because her mother had cheated. And now, the curse is finally showing when Jessica and Franklin's daughter Penelope is born with a pig face. As a teenager, Penelope stays inside her house all the time. Half of her day is spent behind a two-way glass listening to rich boys from Wanda's matchmaking agency, who tell her they love her while her family watches from a hidden camera. Edward is today's candidate. He gets Penelope's attention by saying that he knows what it's like to feel trapped. Penelope decides to give him a chance, so she shows him who she is. When Edward sees her face, he is scared and runs away. As Jake the butler chases Edward, a crying Jessica scolds Penelope for showing herself so soon. Jessica has always felt that the curse hurt her just as much as it hurt her daughter. There were stories in the papers about Penelope, and Jessica did her best to hide her face. She also went to a doctor to find out if surgery was an option. However, because Penelope's pig nose was near her arteries, surgery would kill her. One day, Jessica found Lemon, a reporter, hiding in a cupboard while he tried to take a picture of Penelope. Jessica hit him to get him out, injuring his eye in the process, and then made a drastic decision, pretending Penelope had died. After that, Penelope could no longer leave the house, even though she tried to do so a few times. No more pork could be eaten in the house, and nothing was said about pigs. Penelope spent most of her childhood playing alone in her room and getting homeschooled by her mother. Her mother was preparing her to be a good bride for the man who would one day break the curse. When Penelope turned 18, Jessica hired Wanda, whose agency brought the most eligible blue bloods to Penelope. Every single one of them would jump out the window as soon as they saw her, so Jake had to run after them and bring them back into the house to legally gag them and make them keep quiet. Today, Jake isn't quick enough to catch Edward, so he gets away with the secret. Edward goes to the police station to tell them about the pig monster, but they don't believe him. Since Edward won't leave, he spends the night in jail, which is seen by Larry, the editor of a very important newspaper. Jessica, Wanda, and Jake spend the night in the car waiting for Edward to come home. When he does, though, it's too late. The newspaper has already written an article about how crazy Edward was for saying he saw a pig girl and how he was crazy. Jessica runs back to her family and tells them they're moving before reporters start showing up at the house again, but she changes her mind when she thinks about Penelope walking around in other cities. Instead, she goes right back to looking for a good match for her daughter. In the meantime, Edward goes to see Larry, asks him to print a retraction because this article is hurting his reputation. Larry doesn't care and calls security, but as Edward is being dragged out, Lemon overhears him talking about Penelope and decides to give him a chance. He does believe what Edward saw, but his word alone isn't enough. They need proof. But since Edward doesn't dare to go back into the house, they agree to find someone who will and put him in touch with the agency. It's hard to think of blue blood who could need the money, but Lemon does some research and comes up with Max Campion, a young man who has gambled away his family's fortune. Lemon finds him at a casino. At first, Max doesn't want to talk to him, but when Lemon promises to pay him well, he changes his mind. The next day, all of the new bachelors are required to sign the legal gag before they can meet Penelope. Max comes home late after gambling all night. Lemon gives him a nice jacket with a hidden camera inside that he can turn on by raising his arm. Lemon already sent his name to the agency, so he has no trouble getting into the house. Now, Max can wait in the room with all the other bachelors. But the camera starts to fall, so Max hides behind the couch and fixes it. Penelope didn't want to waste any more time, so she showed her face to all the boys at once before talking to them. They all ran away, proving that talking to them wouldn't have helped. Penelope leaves the room and tries to persuade Jessica to quit, but then they look at the cameras and see that Max is still there because he didn't see Penelope while she was hiding. The women obviously don't know this and think it's a good sign, so Penelope goes to talk to him through the glass. Max is trying to steal a first edition book from the family's collection. It's not the most valuable thing in the room, but Max impresses her by saying that it's her favorite. Penelope pretends to leave by closing the door to her room and then keeps watching him. She sees him run out of the room and come back in a second, thinking he can catch her. Penelope finds this funny, so she tells him to come back the next day. Again, Max gambles all night, and after getting the jacket with the camera from Lemon, he shows up at the house looking very tired. Penelope watches him for a while, and when she sees him pick up a frog flute, they talk about music. Max won't tell Penelope what instrument he plays and dares her to guess, so Penelope has a whole band come over and has Max try out every instrument. Max is bad at all of them, but he makes a whole funny show out of it, and Penelope has a great time watching him. After the band leaves, they talk while playing chess. Penelope stays behind the glass and tells Max which of her pieces to move. Max is shocked to hear that she never leaves the house and hasn't even tried tap beer. He tells her about the outside world and asks her to sneak out with him, but she says no. At least their conversation goes well, and they start to become friends. After another night of gambling, Max shows up to take the camera from Lemon and Edward. Edward is starting to wonder if Max isn't actually trying to get married. Edward thinks it's strange that Max hasn't seen her yet, so he starts talking about how ugly she is. This makes Max angry since he's become protective of Penelope, so he decides to leave. Lemon gave him money, but he already spent it, so he has to stick to the plan. Max goes to see Penelope, and she guesses that he plays the piano because he is there. He plays the one in the room to show her how bad he is, so Penelope comes up behind him to show him how to play. When he turns around, he quickly steps back because her face is quite a shock, but he doesn't run away. In fact, he moves closer to her so he can touch her nose. But this turns on the camera, and Max curses his luck. Penelope thinks he doesn't like her because of how he acted, so she starts crying and runs away. While she argues with her mom about not giving him a chance, Max goes to see Lemon and throws the camera on the ground to destroy it. He then tells Lemon and Edward that Penelope is nothing like what Edward thinks and asks them to leave her alone. Jessica and Wanda come out at the same time and see Max talking to Lemon. They think the worst because of what they see. Max gets scared and follows them inside, trying to explain that he's not trying to hurt them. Penelope finds them, and even though Jessica accuses her of being a spy, she asks Max to marry her so that he can break the curse. Max tells the women that he can't, so they kick him out. He goes back to his apartment and plays the piano to pass the time, which shows that he is a very good player. Then Max spends all of the money he still has on gambling. While this is going on, Penelope hears her mother say that she will never give up. This makes her realize that this will never end. So, she decides to do something with her life. This time, she runs away for good, covering her face with a scarf. Penelope wanders around the city, amazed by all the things she sees for the first time, like a dog and a fountain. She doesn't know that Lemon and Edward have noticed she's gone. Penelope checks into a hotel and pays for it with Jessica's credit card after she calls her mother to tell her she loves her and is leaving. Lemon is also busy, having Edward describe Penelope to an artist, and the next morning, a rather repulsive portrait of her appears in the newspaper, offering $5,000 to anyone who can provide them with an actual image. Max is still gambling when the sun comes up. When he sees that his table dealer's idea of going home is to sleep, and say hello to his kids before coming back, he realizes he doesn't want to live as badly as that and leaves the table while he still has some chips. This is something he's never done before. Back to Jessica. At first she doesn't want to call the police, because she doesn't want them to see her daughter, but when she finds the newspaper portrait, she gives in. Officer Kroll comes over to ask for a description, but Jessica is very vague, so Franklin finally gives up and tells the police about his daughter's pig face so they can find her and bring her back. Even though Penelope has read the paper, she is still going out to enjoy the city. When she gets back to the hotel, her parents and Kroll are there because they found out she stole the credit card and kept track of what she bought with it. Penelope escapes through the window before they catch her. Since she can't use the card anymore, she has only one way to get money, to sell her own picture. After calling Lemon and agreeing on a place to meet, Penelope goes to a photo booth and gets her picture taken. Then she puts them in an envelope and ties it to a string so she can hand them to Lemon from above a bridge without getting too close. Lemon gives her the money back, but when he sees the pictures, he starts to change his mind. He tries to talk to Penelope, but she's already gone. He goes back to the office to scold Edward for his lie, but Edward doesn't care that Lemon no longer wants to publish the story. All he cares about is clearing his name. So he takes the pictures and tells another reporter to put them up. Max is very angry when he sees the picture on the news and comes to Lemon's office to pay him back. Lemon has to tell him that she sold the picture herself and is being independent, which makes Max proud. Days go by, and Penelope stays hidden thanks to the scarf. She meets Annie, a delivery girl, at the pub where she is having her first tap beer. The two of them get along well, and Annie starts taking Penelope with her on her deliveries so they can see the city together. Max, who was inspired by Penelope's bravery, goes to the place where he used to play with his band, apologizes to his old boss for the mistakes he made in the past and asks for a second chance. The man does give him one, but not at the piano. Max must first clean the floors to prove he can be trusted again. Months go by, and Penelope keeps hanging out with Annie and sending her parents postcards about her adventures. They finally find Penelope by following the addresses on these postcards. When she sees them, she runs away. Penelope goes to see Annie for help, but running with the scarf on her face makes it hard to breathe, and she passes out when she gets to the pub. The last thing she remembers is Annie taking off her scarf. Later, Penelope wakes up in the hospital, and is surprised to see reporters everywhere and not running away. Jessica tries to protect her from them, but it's too late and everyone already knows, so Penelope just says hi and lets them take her picture before leaving with Annie to have fun without her scarf. Everyone likes Penelope, and she is a minor celebrity who is often in the news. Now that she is a normal young woman, she has friends and goes to bars with them. When reporters ask Edward what he thinks, he tells them that Penelope is a monster and should be locked up. His father is very angry with him because this could make people dislike their business, so he tells Edward to fix it right away. One night, Penelope is surprised to see Max at the pub, where he congratulates her and tries to tell her how much she inspired him. Penelope is still hurt by what he did, so she doesn't want to listen to him. She goes home, where she gets an even bigger surprise. Edward is there to propose. Penelope doesn't want to accept because she doesn't trust his intentions and she already has friends. But Jessica tells her that they are not friends, they are just fans who like a talking pig, and this is her only chance at a normal life. So Penelope agrees to it. Their engagement is written about in the paper, which makes Lemon sad. But Larry tells him to write an article about Max being arrested for robbery, which is bigger news. Lemon can't believe this, so he goes to prison to see Max, only to find someone else there. It turns out this is the real Max, and Lemon picked up the wrong guy at the casino. Fake Max made up a lie to get the money. In the meantime, Penelope's family and Edward go to the theater, where fake Max, whose real name is Joni, tries to tell Penelope the truth about Edward. Edward drags Joni into the bathroom and tells him that he's the only one who wants to marry Penelope, so he shouldn't stand in the way of her happiness. Later, Lemon goes to see Joni tell him the truth and ask him why he won't marry Penelope. Joni says he wants to, but since he isn't blue blood, he can't help her break the curse. When the wedding day comes, Lemon gives Jessica the file he made about Joni to explain why he didn't ask her to marry him. Jessica is moved, but she still won't tell her daughter the truth because she believes that Joni can't break the curse. After that, the ceremony starts, but Penelope can't handle it, so she runs back into the house while Jessica begs her to come out so she can become a new person. Penelope yells back that she likes who she is already, and then she passes out. When she wakes up, she is surprised to find that her face is back to normal. This is because the person of her own kind, who had to claim her, was herself. Her change is reported on the news, so the reporters no longer follow her around. Jessica says she's sorry for being a bad mom and not seeing the truth years ago. Now that she said she's sorry, the family can start to heal. Jake quits because he is no longer needed, but as he is leaving, he puts a silent spell on Jessica because he was really the witch all along. Penelope also moves out when she turns 25 and starts working as a teacher. She also sends the ring back to Edward with a letter wishing him luck. When it was Penelope's first Halloween at school, a bunch of girls dressed up as her. But the day's biggest surprise is when Wanda gives up trying to keep the secret and sends Johnny's file to her. Penelope decides to do something about it, so she buys a pig costume and, with Annie, sneaks into Johnny's building for the Halloween party. Annie tells him that Penelope needs to go to the bathroom so he'll let her into his apartment. She then leaves them alone so they can talk. After some small talk, Joni says something about her pig mask and how much he loved the real Penelope. Penelope wants to know more, but then she sees his piano and calls him out on it. Now that he knows it's really her, Joni gives her a kiss. They meet up, and a few months later, they tell Penelope's class what happened. Only one of the kids gets the lesson: it's not how powerful the curse is, but how powerful you make it. Lemon sees them having a good time together and decides not to take a picture for the news. A school teaches 3-year-old girls to transform them into emotionless killing machines. One day, number 83, the best student of all, leaves the academy and goes to live life as a normal girl. However, in school, she beats other school students thinking they have come to catch her. She joins school and falls in love with Roger. But the things don't turn out as planned. To know what happens next, click on the video appearing on screen. We upload new movie daily, make sure to subscribe, so you don't miss any video. If you liked the movie, consider sharing it with your friends. Show that you care about them. Thank you.